Okay, in our last little lesson this week, we're talking about odds and expected value. Okay, so this talks about the odds of rolling die and getting, or two dice rather, and getting a certain sum. And you can look over that, especially if you have any, if you enjoy the game of rolling dice. So this is something that you could look over, but I'm not going to ask you anything about this table. Okay, but the way that you're going to write these are odds for or odds against. So the odds of for something happening are this, or the odds against something happening are this. And so that's what we're talking about here. Now, if you're writing odds, the way to write them, I usually write it with a colon, but you could also use the word to. So for example, the odds of getting a certain roll on a dice would be 1 to 35, because there's one way out of 35 that you could get them. For like getting snake eyes or getting 2 ones, right? There's a 1 out of 35 way to get them. So you could write it that way, or you could write it this way. Okay, so those are called the odds. You can also separate them with a hyphen, but to me a hyphen looks like a subtraction, and so I don't separate them with a hyphen. So I'll separate them this way. Now, sometimes they might reduce. So for example, if you say that they're odds of 2 to 34, let's say you had a problem like that on your homework, and you're like, that's not one of the ones that's a multiple choice answer. It's going to reduce. So you can also reduce them kind of like it's a fraction. It's not a fraction, but if you reduced it right, they would be reduced by 2. So 2 goes into this one time, and 2 goes into this one 17. So they're always going to be in a reduced state. Okay, the odds in favor would be A to B. And so it's not like part to the whole, it's the way that they can happen over the way that they cannot happen. And that's how odds are set up. Now, the probability of an event happening is different. And so the probability would be the way it can happen over the total number of outcomes. But the way that odds are set up is that A to B of the ratio of can to can't, right? And so that's the difference there. So in this one, I say, suppose the odds in favor of a president being reelected are 4 to 1. What are the odds against? Okay, so remember, this is can to cannot. So if I said, what's the odds the opposite way, it would just be 1 to 4. So it would be not to can, right? And so that's how that one would look. Now I'd ask for the probability. Okay, so remember, if we think about this one, the odds that a president would be elected were 4, and the odds that they weren't elected was 1. So that gives you a total of can to can't. The total would be 5. So after you get your total being 5, then you look at what you're asking. So I said, what's the probability that the president was elected? And that would be 4 over 5. Okay? So if we look at it here, you're going to add those two up. That's your bottom number, and this is your top number. The next slide says, what's the probability that the president, suppose the odds of favor of the president being reelected are 4 to 1. What is the probability against him being elected? Okay, so against would be this ratio. So again, we would add them up. There's my 1. So the probability that he would not be reelected against, there it is, the word against, the probability he won't be elected was 1/5. Okay, the last part of this section, it's a really quick section, so we ended on a quick note, is expected value. And so in the expected value, you're trying to decide basically, is this game worth it? So it might be a game like a cakewalk, or it might be a game like tossing a raffle, or tossing a coin, that type of thing. And so the way that you see the expected value is you count up all the different ways that this event could occur, and you'll multiply it times the probability. So we would say the value of winning this times its probability, plus the value of winning second place times its probability, plus the value of winning third place times its probability. And you make a total sum there. Okay, so basically it's telling you, is this a fair game? Am I wasting my money if I play it? And that's what you're looking at here. It's called a fair game if you break even. So if you get a 0, if your expected value is 0, that means it's a fair game. All right, so it says it costs $5 to play a game when 2 coins are tossed. Okay, so your cost is $5. Okay, your winnings are these. You're going to win $10 if you get 2 heads. You're going to get $5 if you get 1 head. And you're going to get nothing if there's 0 heads. Okay, and we want to see if this is a fair game. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is talk about tossing 2 coins. Okay, so here's how that looks again, because we did that before. When you toss one, we're tossing 2 coins though. Okay, so here's your first coin. Okay, when you toss your first coin, you either get a head or a tail. Okay? So then we're going to toss it again, or toss it the second time. And when I toss it the second time, if I get this one, I get a head or a tail. And I get this one, I get a head or a tail. So my probability tree looks like this. I can get a blue head, or I can get a blue tail. With this one, I can get another head, or I can get another tail, okay? And with this tail here, I could get tail and then a head, or I can get a tail and then a tail. So we had a blue head with the first one, and then after I tossed the blue head, I got either get a head or a tail again, so a head or a tail again, and then I can get a blue tail. Well, once I do that, then I can get a head or a tail again. So this is my probability. There's 4 different outcomes. Okay, the probability of getting 2 heads is 1 out of 4. The probability of getting a head and a tail is 1 out of 4 and 1 out of 4. So that would be 2 out of 4, which is 1/2. And the probability of getting 2 tails is 1/4. Now let's go back to our problem from earlier. It says the probability of getting the winnings, if you get 2 heads, the winnings are $10. Okay? So if you get 2 heads, the probability of that happening is 1/4, and you win $10. So it would be a probability times the value that you get for winning it. Okay, it also said, if we keep going, it also said that if you get at least 1 head, then you win $5. So there's a 1/2 shot that you'll get 1 head, and that would be $5. Now, you don't have to put the last one on there, but if you put the last one on there, if you got 2 tails, you win $0. Okay? And so that's how that part would look. So let's figure it out. So if we multiply this out, we get 10 over 4 plus 5 over 2 plus a 0. And we can get a common denominator and work them that way, or we can just use our trusty little calculators. Okay, this one would be 2.5, and this one would be 2.5. So 2.5 and 2.5 would be 5. So the expected value in this game is $5. So that's even more than a fair game. That has a really good chance of winning. And so this was a game that you should play. And that's how the odds makers, of course this is a baby example, but that's how the odds makers of all these competitive games, that's how they come up with it. That's the expected value. So this is how they work it on the sheet. And that's how it looks. And you're done.